This video is about you never having to be confused about what your identity is and how you can start manipulating it using this framework, right? So there are probably multiple different ways of understanding the self and understanding its relation to the world. I'm hoping this framework helps us to understand things a little differently. Um, like I've said in the past, right? There's this part of you. This is the conscious awareness. This guy is a mystery, okay? But that's the conscious awareness. That's you if you were doing nothing, just observing without judgment, right? And then you are firing thoughts at this thing called an identity manifold superstructure. It's I just or just identity manifold or identity super interface for short. Why? Because it's a kind of, I imagine it as a globular hyperspace material, right? Hyperspace material made of several grooves and layers and different fabric. Um, Fabric, is that the right word? Well, different fibers, right? So it's very fibrous, right? And it is configured in multiple dimensional space that could map to some layer of shared reality. So in my model, reality, the summation of all possible experiences is what we're calling reality. You've seen this in other videos, but I'm just going to rehash this for the sake of clarity of what this framework is at the moment. It could be evolving in the future. And so there are portions of reality that contain known fibers or known domains. And then there are the ones that haven't been discovered yet, the unknown or the emergent, right? And and how and the basic flow of the identity engineering framework says that you, the conscious observer or awareness, has this cockpit that you exist in or look at the world through. Imagine it as a sphere around the conscious awareness, right? And this superstructure is an interface to reality that you can view through. So you see reality through this thing as a lens. You also manipulate reality through this superstructure. And at the high level and intuitive level, because I do foresee some math involved in this because it's super high, there are many dimensional qualities to it. So it can actually become some kind of equation. It can be represented by a mathematical equation for sure. But I like to see, I like to think that your identity is literally just a potential mapping to some aspect of reality. I do believe, and hear me out, because as I was thinking and refining this framework, one of the things I wanted to stay away from was mysticism, right? So no magical manifestation, no spirituality to kind of explain how people experience or manipulate reality. So I wanted to ground it in some kind of systems understanding, right? But I'd like to think that people do in fact create reality, right? And it's not necessarily that they're creating reality brand new. It's just like reality is a canvas, and there are parts that are already painted in, and then there are parts that are yet to be filled in. Like if you have a canvas, right? There's an infinite kind of different things you can do on there, right? That will kind of together form a picture, right? So, and a simple example is, imagine this is something called software engineering, right? I've used this example before. Imagine this is a software engineering domain in the fabric of reality. Well, depending on the time of the human observer, right, of the human global observation, there's a time where this didn't exist, right? But someone someone with their conscious awareness manipulated their identity manifold, created an identity called software development or computer science, right? Or something, right? And they just kept prodding at this, manipulating what was possible in the emergent space of reality until whatever this thing that they were imagining came into existence. It's like when an architect is seeing a building before it exists in the known global reality. So I see identity as separate from the consciousness, and identity being the um, the the cockpit, I guess. The identity being the like a connection to reality. It tries to map to reality, and the conscious awareness can manipulate reality by or curve reality by um, reconfiguring identity. And this is a loop, right? Reality will return a feedback to the conscious observer, sometimes goes straight back to the identity manifold for people who aren't taking check of reality's signals or noises, right? But sometimes I think actually in my framework, I might have to really think this through. I don't want to jump ahead of myself. I might clarify some things. But one thing's for sure, identity, reality, let me not go there too far because I haven't actually thought about it, really thought too far about how reality sends back the feedback. Um, but you kind of get the picture, and this is the hook, right? The hook. This is the question that I'm hoping to answer, which is how do you reconfigure this? How do you change your identity? Because if you can change your identity, then according to this model, you can update your reality. Right? You can transform your reality. Right? If you say you want to do something, well, there is a mapping. Even if there is no mapping, there's a potentiality of possible mappings, right? And technically, you can map your identity to some fabric of reality, some domain, right? And it might be something you're not good at, but once you start saying you can, you begin to create the fiber that can map to that particular slice of reality, and that's when the magic begins, right? So we reconfigure by by being aware. Everything's in the mind, by the way. Everything starts with thoughts, right? Um, Removing limiting beliefs, any preconceived notions. Remove them. Remove preconceived notions. Try to come at this as innocently as you can, and believe. Right? Believe anything is possible. You can. I've heard stories of people who were told in their businesses, I think it was Google, to go create some kind of ad service, right? And something that would have probably taken them a long time, and they would have said, if given an infinite budget, we need this huge team. Someone, I think it was Sergey, right? And he said, it's only like you're a small team, 4 or 5 of you, go build this, and they had no constraints. They just did it, and because they didn't have any limiting beliefs, right? So get rid of the limiting belief, right? If there's something you want to do, right, you believe you can do it. Don't worry about what it looks like. Create that fiber in your identity. It may not map to reality yet. People may laugh, right? Oh, how are you going to build that company that's going to eventually become a unicorn? Just start. Just do it. Worst case scenario, you'll get some feedback, right? And then you'll update, you'll reconfigure. It's better to start moving, start reshaping reality than to not do anything. So this framework aims to help us really visualize what happens when we start taking action with our identity. If I say today, for example, and I mean it, right? And that's the hard part, is actually meaning it, actually believing. That's the last step, right? Because what you believe, you will act on. If you don't believe it, you may pretend for a bit, but when stress comes, that identity center will not hold. That stable configuration, it won't hold. So, so, um, so you really have to believe. Like if you say, "I'm going to be the first person in my family to cross $1 million," right? Believe it. Believe it. Visualize your identity as the person, right, that can attract this, and and start moving in the direction of who that person is. You don't have to. It can help to look at other people, but don't get distracted. Focus on you. Right? Focus on becoming that person. Work on the skills that make you become that person. And then by focusing on that domain, virtual map or fiber of your own identity manifold, reality is going to start to map, right? That connection is going to happen. I call this pairing, right? You know how you have Bluetooth, right? Pairing with your device. Well, there's an identity reality pairing that happens, right? And for you, this might be an emergent uh, um, reality, and maybe this emergent reality is that you're supposed to be the first millionaire, and maybe. Well, I think I kind of mentioned that this is really for things that haven't existed. So let's pretend, let's pretend instead, right, there's an existing reality called being a millionaire, right? Someone's done it, so it is possible. So we can all do it today. It's not difficult, right? It's not easy for sure, but it's not impossible, right? Because someone's already done it. The impossible things are here, like 20 years ago. Can you reuse a spaceship? The answer was no, it couldn't be done. So it was an impossible, unknown, emergent aspect of reality. But now we see it like it's normal because someone fought, believed with their identity, and kept prodding that reality until it collapsed into existence, right? So, so imagine now you're trying to be a millionaire, and you know the being a millionaire exists because you can already see it. It's just that that instance of you being a millionaire is not your reality yet. And so you've got to assume the identity and be so confident that you establish that pairing, right? And that pairing takes time. You've got to go through several iterations where this, let's say it's this strand here, right? Where this configuration of who you are stands the test of time, right? That integrity is tested, right? And sometimes people get started, but then life hits them hard and they eventually give up and that pairing stops. And they don't curve that reality enough for the likelihood to continue to improve in their favor until the manifested or desired outcome actually comes to their orbit. So that's a very interesting way of using the identity engineering framework that I am working on, and it's still in its raw infancy, to kind of explain how people can manipulate their identity using their thoughts to produce a particular outcome in their lived experience. So let me know if this is interesting to you. If you have been watching this video all the way to the end, oh my goodness, I appreciate you. Um, Humble beginnings, right? And I don't know, this is exciting me, and I don't know if it's naive, but it's definitely useful. I've been applying it to my life. That's why I'm confident, because I've noticed how much I have changed over the last couple of weeks. My desire to learn, to continue to expand in my areas of interest, and I'm already seeing how reality is responding to that shift in identity. That's why I'm saying I was just looking at all of those things and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the framework. That's what's happening. So stick with me. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe, okay? I know that's a big investment. There are many videos and you chose to watch this one. Once again, I appreciate you. And I'm going to do my best to continue to make this as useful as possible. And if there are any other interesting topics that I want to talk about, I'll definitely talk about them. All right, I'll see you in the next video.